Well, hey, how's it going, guys? Bob from Bobot's Trains. Welcome back. Now, I haven't done a video in a while, and I thought I'd do something really different this time. You've seen many videos from me over the last 4 years on my YouTube channel, and it was all building this layout. And what I thought would be really different and cool is to go back and just go through how we got to this point, not only in this layout, but in my life as far as trains go. And I started looking at some old photos, and I actually found some old 8mm movies. So I think what we'll do is we'll just step through it in a very casual environment. I'll do a slideshow, and we'll go through it, and I'll just show you how I got to this point. So it should be a lot of fun. So let's get started. Now, I believe this to be the earliest video or picture of me as a little kid having something to do with trains. This is Christmas morning, probably around 1970. And there was this little steam engine here that made all kind of sounds and lights, and apparently I was not too happy with it, and I guess it traumatized me, and maybe that's what started me on this journey with the model trains. See, I think I want to play with it, and I don't see the lights and sound, Mom. How do I do this? And you're going to turn it on? Nah, not doing that. I'll just go up here where it's safe. I believe my earliest memory of a train would be the Lionel set under the Christmas tree at Graham and Pap's house in Steelton, Pennsylvania. This would be early 70s, and there's me on the left, and there's the train in the background. I remember playing with that around Christmas time. Round about that same time, I got my own Lionel set. Here it is running around our tree. And like the one that I showed you from Pap in the earlier picture, I believe this was pieced together, not a full set. Now, we do have video from 8mm that was taken at Strasburg Railroad. This is number 90. This had to be in the early 70s. And while I don't think it really influenced my interest in model railroading, and I'm not even really sure I remember going there, but we do have this video. And Pap was really into this stuff. He told a story about at 20 years old, he ran and jumped on a boxcar on a train and went out looking for a job and had only the clothes on his back. He was born in 1910, so trains were really in at that time. But we do have this video when we went to visit Strasburg. And here's proof that I was there. That's me on the left with my cousins on the right. I believe this was some type of Fisher-Price item. It would back up and the log would roll onto the flat car. And there was this thing. Now, we're still talking early 70s here. I remember that thing. I wish I could remember the name. I want to say Silver Streak, but I don't know. It was a battery-powered, very modern-looking, plasticky train, and there was track and switches you could throw. It was actually really cool. And in the background, by the way, you see the Lionel platform as well. Now, mid-70s, I remember getting a Tyco HO set for Christmas. So it was around 76, because this was the Spirit of 76 set. This is not my exact set. I remember mine had like a New Haven orangey colored boxcar, but this is very similar. If you look at the track plan, I had that over-under figure 8 with the little bridge, the same transformer, and 4x8 sheet of MDF type plywood, and I didn't do any scenery or anything. I had one of those foam tunnels, but I remember those Tyco boxes and getting into that for a while, and I had a lot of fun right around mid-70s. Now, at the time, my dad worked part-time at Sears at night to make some extra money for the family, and I'll never forget one night he came home. It was dark. It was around Christmas, and he bought me this. Probably spent his whole paycheck for the night on this, and it was maybe $8 to $12 on the end of the box. But I wanted a switcher, and my cousin was into HO, and he had something similar, and that was my favorite engine. That thing was really cool. I used it all the time. And in 1978, we moved to a different house, and I remember briefly having a steam engine similar to this in HO on my layout in the garage, which we hinged down from a shelving unit on the side of the wall so I could play with it in the garage. And also at that time at the middle school, I was involved in a club where we made an HO wooden boxcar out of a kit. But Pretty much 1980 was the end of my experience with HO trains and trains in general for a pretty long time. And so here you have a black screen because this is the black hole of trains, which I know a lot of you guys experienced. You go to high school, you get involved in things like, in my case, band and music, and went off to college, and I was into computers and did programming. And that's pretty much it. I mean, I guess the HO trains got sold at a garage sale, and I know that the Lionel post-war stuff was held on to. I mean, Pap kept his stuff and kept it running for a while, and I had my old set boxed up, but I didn't do anything until around 1997. And what happened in 1997 was eBay. I sold a bunch of old toys on eBay in 1997, and I pulled out my old Lionel set that was mine, and I sold it. I sold all the pieces individually. And it kind of got me re-inspired to play around with trains because I had sold it and started thinking about it, and I was online at the time, and I started doing news groups, and guys were talking about trains, and I don't know, you know how it is. It's that revival. It's that rebirth, and you get back into it. So long story short, too late. I contacted some of the guys I sold them to, and I got most of my stuff back. I bought it back from them because I told them I was interested in it, and I didn't want to be without it. So I started buying the stuff back and getting it back and reading news groups, and it took off from there. So it's Thanksgiving of 98, and I am a couple years into my first house, and I have a job and going along with everything. And I thought, I'm going to put up a tree, and wouldn't it be cool if I had a train set for the first time in many, many years around my Christmas tree? So I go down to the train shop in Camp Hill, Pennsylvania, the closest one to me, knowing nothing about anything, and I buy a Lionel starter set and go to Home Depot and get some plywood and start playing around. And within weeks, I was buying more engines and more cars and switches and doing all kind of crazy stuff on this flat 4x8 that I had in my living room that was supposed to be just for Christmas. I wanted a steam engine that was nicer than the one that came with a starter set, so I went and bought this within weeks. Then I started looking on eBay and realized you could buy engines separately, so I got this diesel, got a couple more cars. Then guys were doing set breakups. So I picked this up, and I was on my way. On my way to what you guys are probably still doing, which is buying way too many trains for the size of your layout and the amount of track that you have. But we know how that goes. Now, I started out not really understanding the difference between the O27 and O gauge track and all the different sizes. But one thing that happened, which sticks with me today, is my love of scale. I love the scale size, and not so much the semi-scale. So as you can see here, I was buying box cars and things like that that were scale, and what happened is they were way too big for the O27 track. And I really didn't know it was an issue, and I tried to run this through this switch, and it was like, oh, that's not going to work. So we started on the path of trying to figure out how we were going to resolve this. Well, of course, how we're going to resolve it was we're going to frickin' put a permanent layout in the basement and be done with it. Then we can use O-scale track and do what we want. So by early 1999, I had the platform up. I had switched all over to Lionel O-gauge track. Bought some more cars, started buying some plywood. Spent a lot of time with the RR Track software, designing my end-all, be-all track plan. Yeah, right. Like I thought it was never going to change again. And I added second layer and bought some more track and a whole bunch of switches, and my cousin came over and we played with it at night and got all kind of crazy ideas, and it just kept going from there. Then we thought I should buy some more track and some more switches, so we did that. Then installed a whole bunch more switches. So then I needed some more power, so I had to go get an MTH Z4000 and do a bunch of wiring. And of course, you got to keep buying more trains too. I mean, you don't even have an operational platform or layout, but got to keep going on eBay and going to the hobby shops and buying more and more trains, because you can never have enough trains, right? It's like you're going to take them with you or something. So it was really getting fun. And as with anything, what started out as a really good plan and a really good idea just grew from there. The problem was, we really didn't have any experience previous doing this, and we started doing some really crazy things and some really stupid things and some really stupid things, some really, really stupid things, like, I don't know, I didn't even calculate it, but like making like a 20%, 30% grade or something, which, by the way, I will never do a grade again because of this, but it was just stupid. We were just doing stupid stuff. Look at that. It's like, oh, why won't it pull 20 cars, die-cast cars up and down this grade? It's got magnet traction. Should work, right? Anyway, so of course, because my Lionel magnet traction engine wouldn't pull 15 die-cast cars up a 40% grade for some reason, I had to go looking for an engine that would. And this was my introduction to MTH. And, it was a PS2, and I had to get it because it had friggin' snow tires on it. It had those traction tires, and actually it would pull itself plus the 3 Lionel engines that were not being powered at the time. It would drag them and the 15 cars up that giant grade that I put there. So, that thing was pretty cool. And that actually led me to buying more and more MTH over the years. But it was still a stupid idea. Now, it was around this time that I started getting tools and repair manuals and learning how to buy things off of eBay and repair them and rebuild them myself. And shown here are actually, it's my original post-war that I bought back, the one I had sold on eBay, and to the right there by the pole is my grandfather's. So I acquired his train set at this time and totally rebuilt that. And here's Pap's train set, actually my dad's train set today. I had rebuilt that engine. It was a 1666. I put new contacts, new jewels in the front, lubed it all up. I don't do any painting or anything. It had a funny tender with it. I forget the number on it. And I don't know that any of this stuff, I think it was all pieced together. I don't believe this was a set of any type. 3472, I rebuilt that. I had a video on that showing you how I rebuilt all the milk cars. That's a nice piece. Actually, the 50 gang car doesn't go on there, but the flat car itself in certain variations has some great value. And had this funny caboose too, which used to have one of those horn hooks for the couplers. I don't even think it belongs to this set. And here's my set, or what's left of it. There's no caboose, but it was a 2025 engine, and I beat the piss out of that thing. I'll tell you, it never smoked. It had the parts removed for that and the wiring. But I remember my cousin and I driving that thing into Matchbox cars sitting on the track. I put a new shell on the tender, rebuilt the milk car. We had a lot of fun with that train set. I don't run them anymore. I keep them in the box, but I pulled them out to show you here. It had a Sunoco tank car with it. I had both a 6456 hopper and a 6462 gondola with the wood barrels in it, but I just show this here. And the caboose is gone as well, but it was a 6357, and I can pick one of those up anywhere pretty cheap if I wanted one. It was around this time that I also decided I was going to get into photography with my trains. Of course, I was buying more and more. This was a post-war celebration 6250. I was just putting them on the track and trying different lighting, and every time I'd pick up some new cars, I would start to develop my photography skills, and just something to do, something different to play around with. That's a 1666 from Pap's set and a tender that didn't match it. I really started liking these Atlas O-scale and O-scale cars. Very nicely detailed. I picked a whole bunch of them up. Took some pictures of those. So by now I had given up on the massive grade layout and gone on to layout version 2.0. I decided to go with Gargrave's track, raw switches, Hobby Innovations roadbed, designed a control panel that I wired myself, which took forever with all these small switches, toggle switches. There's my proposed layout of the track plan. That was an involved project, but it really came out nice, and I still use that control panel in some form today. Started learning more about wiring, although it's not as neat as I wish it would. It works perfectly. Did some stuff with Train Master. And just expanded from there. And I thought I want to put some switches in, so I ripped it back up and started making a bunch of places to park more engines and cars off to the side, some little spurs and things. And then it just got out of hand as usual. And it was now I was on to that, let's add more stuff and more wiring and see how much possible track we can fit on this layout, which is something a lot of guys do. But I wasn't really into scenery at the time, and I just wanted to have running sessions, and I wanted as much track as I possibly could, and I certainly got it. Played around a little with houses and some paper roads, but wasn't really my thing. And layout 2.0 was disassembled and went away in about 2003. So around 2003, 2004, I see this Woodland Scenics N-Scale kit at a hobby shop, and I really liked the mountains and how the trains looked like they were very realistic when they were running. So I bought the kit and started learning about how to do mountains with their terrain system and started playing around with N-scale track, doing scenery and painting. And it was a really good way to learn things because they had all the supplies that you needed included in the kit. And these are photos of the actual one that I was working on at the time. I had never done grass or landscaping before, any rock outcroppings, and they included all this stuff, the dyes and the paints and the pigments and things like that in the kit. Got to use all these things. They all came in the kit. And if there were a couple things you had to buy extra, but it was a really great way for a couple $100 to learn how to do this stuff. And this is how I learned so I could do it on my current O-scale layout. Molds for the rock outcroppings. And it didn't turn out too bad for the first try at this stuff. I mean, ballasting N-scale track was no picnic. And I started realizing that I learned the techniques and it was great, but, it kind of wasn't my thing as far as size. I mean, it was very inexpensive and easy to work on and wasn't overwhelming, and I really liked the engine and things, but keeping that N-scale engine on the track when it would hit a little piece of ballast or something was ridiculous, and I realized I couldn't work with things that small anymore, and it was frustrating. So that was the end of my experience with N-scale, and I sold that layout in its entirety to a guy in that condition locally, and he just wanted to take it from there. And that's great. I'm glad somebody got some use out of it. Fast forward to 2010, I had moved into a new house, and here you see the start of the new layout, which you guys have followed on YouTube since 2010. These are the very first pictures I took. I wanted something to play around with. I used some of the bench work that I used on those old layouts you saw, put some foam on top, and just started from there. Well, I hope you enjoyed this history of Bobot's trains, how we got to where we are today. I greatly appreciate all you guys and all my followers, and I hope you click like and leave me comments below to let me know if you've enjoyed this. I hope this has been informative and entertaining in some way to you, and thanks for watching. I'll now close out the video by doing a full walk around of my current layout. Sit back and enjoy.